Hello, this is Jerry Morton. Welcome to my Finding My Way podcast. This is podcast number 28, titled It Continues. It Continues is a story from my adult years. The collection of stories I have written and am reading to you cover many subcultures in our country that I have interacted with from my childhood to my adult and senior years. A more extensive introduction to the Finding My Way stories takes place in the beginning of Podcast 1. Regardless of which podcast you are listening to, you will find the story both entertaining and worthy of your reflective thoughts concerning its contents. The stories, as a collection, provide insights into a span of time that has played a role in shaping American culture and influencing its future. The stories provide you with a sense of admiration for the culture's collective courage and our country's commitment to justice and its optimistic willingness to address new challenges. It continues. A dear friend of ours called the house one afternoon. She was checking to see if it would be all right to spend the evening with us. The next morning, she had to have a cyst of some kind removed from her abdomen. The operation was to take place in a Knoxville hospital. It was an early morning appointment. She lived 30-some miles away. Leaving from our house rather than hers would make the trip easier for her. Of course, that was fine with us. She was to explain her condition to us when she arrived. It was always good to visit with this dear friend. We had all known each other since our graduate school days. It was common for us to spend an overnighter at the other's house. We had the downstairs bed all set up and ready for unexpected guests. Like our other very close friends, she was aware of my interest in psychic phenomena, but did not have much more than a courtesy level of interest in it herself. At least that was the way I had interpreted her responses to my comments about it. As a result, I just didn't bring up that topic when we were all visiting. This visit was unusual. She had a medical condition that appeared to need rather sudden surgery. We anxiously awaited her arrival. When we settled into our comfortable visiting that early evening, she explained her condition. She had some kind of a cyst that had grown to about the size of a large grapefruit in her abdominal cavity. It had been growing larger over the last few months. The doctors had performed numerous tests on the cyst. They thought it wasn't cancerous, she reported. Since the cyst had continued to grow and was causing her considerable discomfort, arrangements had been made for tomorrow morning's surgery. Our friend had left her doctor's office and come straight to our house, she said. That final examination late that afternoon was to confirm the exact dimensions and location of the cyst for the morning surgery. There was no doubt as to the cyst's location and size. She said her physician stated that it might have grown some since the last time it had been examined. Of course, we were supportive and expressed our concern. The whole process would be pretty routine, she stated. At this point, she did not know how long she would be in the hospital. It all depended on the surgery and what they learned about the cyst. That night, after we all went to bed, I said a brief prayer for her. It was not a long, drawn-out one with dread and foreboding. I thought the whole process would be as our friend had described it, pretty routine. If I had suspected that it might be something truly serious, I might not have been so casual in my concern or in my prayer. In the morning, I had to leave for work earlier than my wife and our friend would leave. I was about to go out the front door when our friend came up from downstairs. Giving my wife a hug and our friend a quick wave goodbye, I said, "I'm sure everything will be fine." We planned to visit her in the hospital that evening. Just as I walked into the house that afternoon, the phone rang. I answered it. Our friend said it was all so amazing. They did not perform the operation. "You prayed for me last night, didn't you?" Well, yes, just a little. I knew it. When I got to the hospital, they wanted to do one more test on me just to be sure they knew exactly where the cyst was and how big it was. It was gone. Now, yesterday, just before I left for your house, my doctors examined me. It was there. They have the records to prove it. Then this morning it was gone. They did find a little thing the size of a small pea. They said that it didn't warrant the surgery. No one can explain what happened. That couldn't have happened, but it did. Thank you. There's nothing to thank me for. We loved your company. Let's get together again soon. When Anna gets home, she will be so excited about this good news. We are so happy for you. Maybe I should have denied having anything to do with the unexplainable disappearance of her cyst more vigorously. It was really just a fleeting prayer. I felt a little guilty that I hadn't taken her condition much more seriously than I did. A few years after the mystery of the cyst occurred, our children were eager to have a summer vacation at the beach. All of their friends seemed to be having family vacations at the beach, and our kids thought it was only fair that we have a vacation at the beach as well. My wife and I yielded to their desires by making a compromise. We would go to the beach in Virginia Beach, Virginia. That way, the kids could go to the beach during the day, and my wife and I could attend the various sessions being held at the Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, the Edgar Cayce Center there. In the afternoons and evenings, we would be with the children. Both of the kids were old enough to be responsible for themselves during the day. Besides, we reasoned, the ARE was close to the beach and our hotel. We would be able to periodically check on the kids, and they knew how to reach us at any time. We all had a good time. Anna and I attended a few ARE seminars together, as well as splitting up when there were simultaneous sessions going on that we wished to attend separately. That was the case when the training session on developing your own psychic abilities conflicted with the prayer group presentation, in which some of those at the ARE Center who prayed for others were presenting. The ARE received and continues to receive many requests for prayers to be made for specific individuals. The ARE prayer group regularly met and prayed for those individuals. It still conducts those prayer sessions. My session began with the instructor explaining that everyone is psychic, but most of us deny that fact. He was going to demonstrate to us that we were, in fact, psychic through an exercise in which he was about to lead us. Before he could start the demonstration, he needed us to find a partner. He directed our group of 26 or so people to pull all of the chairs in which we had been sitting out of the center of the room and push them against the wall. Once that was done, he told us to start walking around the open space in a random manner until we were directed to stop. After a minute or two of this meandering, he shouted, "Stop!" We did. Then he directed us to identify the person closest to each of us so that we knew who our partner would be for the exercise. My partner was a woman of about 30, plus or minus a few years. We were directed to get 2 chairs and sit facing our partner. One of the partners would be the subject and the other the psychic. After completing the exercise in that relationship, we would switch roles and repeat the exercise. My partner was a little self-conscious and wanted me to play the role of psychic first. I would have rather have been the subject, but yielded to her request. The next set of instructions was for the psychic to simply look at the subject and let his imagination run free as he was thinking about the person. No restrictions should be put on any wild or absurd thoughts that came into our heads. After a few minutes of doing this silent imagining, the instructor would announce that it was time to stop. Then the participant, being the psychic, would tell the subject what he had imagined during the quiet time. The subject was not to interrupt the psychic as he told her what he had imagined. Once the psychic had finished, the subject would give her reaction to what the psychic had said. When it was time to tell my partner what I had imagined, I began by apologizing to the woman because my thoughts were so strange and bizarre. They did not make any sense. At least we would both get a good laugh from what my imagination had produced, I told her as a way of apologizing for what I was about to relate. With an embarrassed smile, I began. You are riding some sort of a train, but it's not exactly a train. The sound on the wheels of the track keep trying to establish a rhythm like clickety-clack, clickety-clickety-clack. But the rhythm keeps getting interrupted. It is both humorous and irritating to you and the other passengers. The train seems to go in and out of tunnels, but the interior lights are out of synchronicity with the tunnels. They don't always go on when the train goes into a tunnel, and they don't always go off when it enters the sunlight. People just laugh and shake their heads when this happens. Then you suddenly get hungry. You have to eat. You walk through a few cars trying to find the dining car. Finally, you find it. It is full. You are about to leave when the maitre d' comes forward and escorts you to the one open seat. 3 businessmen are sitting at the table. You don't know them. You take the remaining chair. The maitre d' hands you the menu, but you can't read it. It's like it's in a foreign language or something like that. You're embarrassed that you can't read it. In your embarrassment, you just point at something on the menu and say you want that. The maitre d' is taken aback by your choice and asks you if you are sure it is what you wish to order. Your embarrassment is very high as you insist that is exactly what you want. Reluctantly, the maitre d' accepts your order and walks away. The sound of the wheels on the track continues out of sync, and the car goes dark in the tunnels as usual. You and the businessmen laugh. There's a big commotion at the back of the dining car. People turn to see what is going on. The maitre d' is leading a llama down the center of the aisle with the assistance of a few others. He stops at your table and hands you the reins, telling you that this is the llama you have ordered. I expected the lady to laugh at my outrageous imaginative story. She did not. She just stared at me. Then she said, I live in New York City. I have to ride the subway to work and back every day. The cars and the tracks are old. The wheels on the subway make the very sound you described. They are always just out of rhythm at the most annoying times. Sometimes we just laugh about it. At other times it does irritate. And the lights of the subway are just as you said. They are out of sync with coming on when it enters a tunnel and going off when it exits. We all laugh when it happens we just shake our heads. I am hypoglycemic. When I get an urge to eat, I have to eat right then. I can't help it. I have to eat or I'm in trouble, and I'm always embarrassed at restaurants. I am dyslexic. I can't make sense out of the menus. In my embarrassment, I do just point at something and say that's what I want without knowing what I'm ordering. I have no idea what the llama means. Do you think I'm going on a trip or something? I have no idea as to what it means. I thought the whole story was just made up. I thought you'd find the whole thing funny. I'm amazed that so much of it fits. Yes, this is strange. The instructions came for me to be the subject and the lady to be the psychic. When it came time for her to tell me what came into her mind as she silently looked at me, she told me what she was thinking. As far as I could tell, there was nothing in her story that fit me, nor did it appear to be an accurate prediction of any future events. We were both disappointed. I tried to help her feel better about what she had told me. At this point, I don't remember anything that she said about me. As time passed, it seemed that several psychologists in the area knew of my interest in psychic phenomena. No one, outside of my close circle of friends, ever discussed the topic of psychic phenomena with me. The way that I learned that others knew of my interest came through an unexpected phone call. The caller identified himself as Ben Berger. He said that he was a cancer patient who had just moved to Knoxville from Connecticut so that he could receive some alternative cancer treatment. He had been searching for someone with formal training in psychology who had also explored both psychic phenomena and alternative belief systems. My name kept being mentioned to him as a person who could relate to him effectively on those topics. He would like to meet with me. I could come to the apartment where he and his wife lives, since it was a little difficult for him to get out. His cancer was in an advanced stage of development. We set a time for us to meet. At that meeting, Ben explained his condition and what he hoped to gain from conversations with me. Ben was a highly successful attorney in Connecticut. He and his wife had 2 grown sons. When he came down with cancer of his lymphatic system, he did not want to undergo all of the chemotherapy that doctors recommended, nor all of the pain medication they had prescribed. He did not want to poison his body or lose his full awareness of his thoughts and feelings. That was why he sought out alternative therapies. Much time and thought went into his search. He was very careful about what he ate, making sure that everything was organic, with no man-made chemicals in it. If he couldn't find those things, he just would not accept the alternatives. He got enough pure, healthy food to maintain his nutritional needs, he thought. A physician in California had written about having cancer and how he cured himself of it through a carefully controlled diet and the consumption of various supplements. That physician then advised other cancer patients on his newly developed treatment method, and reportedly, they were cured as well. Unfortunately, that physician's strategies had not been scientifically researched. He was banned from practicing this kind of medicine. Sometime after that, the physician died, Ben reported. Fortunately, Ben related, He had found one of the cancer patients who had been cured under the direction of this now deceased doctor. That recovered patient lived in Knoxville and was a practicing physician. The Knoxville doctor had told him that he was not qualified as an oncologist and could not be his attending physician for his cancer treatment. However, he could work with Ben on some other related medical issues that were taking place as a result of Ben's cancer. Ben decided that he would move to Knoxville so that he could be near this recovered cancer patient. He hoped to gain from the insights the former cancer patient and physician had acquired while being treated by the California doctor. Ben stated that he was in a considerable amount of constant pain. The pain was so great that he could not sleep except for a few minutes at a time. Despite the pain and its results, Ben was committed to following the treatment path he had set for himself. At this point, Ben assured me, his health was not failing as fast as his Connecticut doctors had predicted that it would. Ben wanted to meet with me on a regularly scheduled basis to discuss what I thought was real about psychic phenomena and what it meant both during one's lifetime and after death. He offered to pay me for my time. I explained that I had not been formally trained in death and dying issues. Therefore, I could not accept payment for visiting with him. However, I would actually like to meet with him and discuss the whole issue of psychic phenomena and its meaning. I was still trying to understand the phenomenon myself. I was aware of the power of personal belief systems and the difficulty involved in changing those belief systems. Perhaps the two of us could explore the topic together as equal partners. Ben agreed, and we began meeting together on a regular basis for approximately a year and a half. From the first of our meetings, Ben claimed that when I was with him, his pain left him. I did not know what to make of that. Often during our meetings, Ben would sleep. Sometimes he would sleep a half an hour or more while I sat with him. He said that he just felt so relaxed when we were together that he just fell asleep. He reported that he could not sleep for that length of time during any other part of the day. Again, I didn't know how to respond to that statement other than to say it was fine with me if he slept the whole time we were scheduled to be together. As it turned out, Ben was well aware of the Cayce material and many other writings that were new to me. He was a vigorous student of a wide variety of religions. His family had left Germany for New York City shortly before the start of the Second World War. From the best I could determine, Ben was about 10 years old when the family relocated to New York. His father was a world-renowned scholar of the Jewish Kabbalah. Ben explained that the Kabbalah concerned Jewish mysticism. People from all over the world would come to his family's apartment just to talk to his father about the Kabbalah. A few months into our regularly scheduled discussion sessions, Ben related that when he was about 12 years old, he had approached his father and asked him to teach him about the Kabbalah. His father had refused to do it. As Ben related the story, his father told him that he shouldn't spend his time studying the Kabbalah. Instead, he should be like his uncle and become a lawyer and make a lot of money. His father's refusal to share his knowledge about the Kabbalah with him was clearly upsetting. He wanted me to explore with him the reasons his father would not want to share his life study with him. Ben and I discussed his father's life situation during that time. The family was poor. His uncle was probably helping them pay their bills. My speculations seemed to help Ben come to a degree of peace with his father over his refusal to teach him about this. The big bulges of cancer cells on Ben's neck and in other places, identified with the location of lymph nodes, continued to grow as time progressed. It was clear that Ben's health was beginning to deteriorate as our meetings continued month after month. However, Ben wanted to continue the discussion sessions. We became friends. He talked about his sons and his hopes for their futures. He was proud of them. He loved his wife. He wondered what would happen to them after he had died. Those discussions always led back to explorations of belief systems and spirituality. Ben both challenged my own thoughts on the topics and provided me with support for my continuing explorations. He also continued to sleep during some portion of our time together and claimed to remain pain-free while I was there. I never did understand those claims. Towards the end of his life, Ben had to be hospitalized. His condition rapidly worsened. Ben's wife kept me informed of his situation. Just before my last visit with Ben in his hospital room, his wife had informed me that Ben was very weak. He needed assistance in getting out of bed and to go to the bathroom. The end was near. When I walked into Ben's hospital room that last visit, I was shocked to see how weak and frail he had become since I had visited with him 2 weeks before this. I sat close to his side as we talked. We weren't speaking about anything particularly disturbing when Ben unexpectedly started crying. Between his sobs and with anger in his voice, he came close to shouting, "Why wouldn't my father teach me about the Kabbalah?" I was stunned. I thought this issue had been resolved when he had brought the topic up about a year ago. This was still a burning issue with Ben. Here was this highly successful and respected attorney who had acquired many honors over the decades of his professional life, still disturbed about an incident with his father that had occurred when he was 12 years old. Ben was on the verge of death, yet he was consumed with anger, sadness, and grief over this one incident. I had to do something. "Okay, Ben," I began. "I want you and me to go back to that time when you were 12, the time when you asked your father to teach you about the Kabbalah. This time I'm going to be you, and you are going to be your father. I am going to ask your question of your father, and you are going to answer me as your father. You have 2 grown sons. You know how a father thinks. You know why your father answered you as he did. You will answer my questions as your father would." Ben agreed. I proceeded to speak to Ben as he played the role of his father, and I played the role of being his 12-year-old son. I even tried to sound like a 12-year-old as I asked, "Father, I want you to teach me about the Kabbalah." Speaking as his father, Ben denied my request and told me to study and become an attorney and rich like my uncle. I persisted, asking why he did not want to teach me since he was teaching so many others. Ben, staying in the role of his father, responded to my question. I continued with a series of follow-up questions. Ben answered all of them. As his father, he explained that he was embarrassed to be so poor all of a sudden. He did not speak good English and lacked the education to be financially successful in America. Ben needed to get a good American education so that his family would not have to depend on everyone else to take care of their basic human needs. as was the case with their family. His uncle was a better example for Ben to follow in the United States than his father was. Ben would be better served to study in the public schools and be successful in that system than spending his time studying the Kabbalah right then. As an adult, Ben could study the Kabbalah all he wanted. Now was not the time to be studying the Kabbalah. Now was the time to be studying how to be successful as an American citizen. Ben explained in the role of being his father. With that, Ben and I became ourselves again. We stopped role-playing. Ben was no longer crying. He had a peaceful smile. We hugged each other and said our goodbyes. Ben's wife later reported that after I had left and she returned to his hospital room, Ben looked totally different. He had regained his natural color in his face and had renewed energy. That evening, Ben got dressed and the two of them went out to a nearby restaurant and ate a regular meal. Every evening for the next several evenings or so, they left the hospital to eat their evening meal at a restaurant. Ben was able to sit up, go to the bathroom, and move about his room without need of assistance. They continued to eat out for supper. At Ben's funeral reception, his wife told me that he was energetic and joyous right up to the afternoon that he quietly died while taking a nap. Among other things, Ben taught me the importance of coming to peace with one's past. It doesn't make any difference how old you are. You are oppressed by hurtful memories until you can come to an understanding of them that gives you peace.